Okay. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, yeah. Now it's funny. Now it's like now. Okay, now we get involved.
Yeah, let's start with a simple introduction. Who is Richie Hawtin?
Yeah. Who is Richie on? That's a good question. Sometimes I don't know because it feels like I'm 53 now, so it feels like I've been through so many different versions of myself. You've learned so much as you live life, and there's always a main inner being, but you're always kind of, I think, changing through experiences in the world, right? And I'm traveling all the time, so I think the outside surface changes a little bit, but I guess inside, I still feel like I'm kind of, you know, introverted, geeky kid who loves technology and music. And those are the two forces that keep pushing me along on my journey somewhere.
Yeah, you live in so many places. You live in UK, where you were born. Yeah, then in Canada.
Then in Canada, New York, yeah.
Really, and yeah. So, which city like influenced you the most as a musician? All right.
You know what? Like I think when I was really young and I moved to Canada next to Detroit, it was a big shift in my life. And I think it really made me malleable and able to navigate new situations. And that kind of put me in a place to be somebody who's really comfortable going into the unknown, whether that's a new city, a new club, new people. I'm pretty open. And so, like, I don't know, back to the question, is there a favorite city or something like that? Like Berlin's been super inspiring.
You was the music scene as well. If you could compare like each city, like it was before and like it is right now.
Well, you know what?
You seen a lot of
Like Detroit was super important for me at the beginning because of the music scene and because there was so much heritage of techno and music. And that kind of gave me my first understanding of what it was to be involved in music and feel it really deeply. And then going to New York was also a really interesting time because it was like, Manhattan and Brooklyn and club kids. There was disco. That was a totally different vibe. And then coming to Berlin in the 2000s was super hedonistic, and it was a place of freedom and a place to experiment. And sometimes I don't know if Berlin is that open and free now, but it also it could be for people coming to the first time just as free as as it was for me. It's hard for me to understand because I'm in a different place in my life, and I've been here so long that I understand the city in a different way. I see the city with different ways. But at the end of the day, music meets free, open, uncontrolled places for people to express themselves. Whether that's a dance floor in a club or a warehouse, it's music and club culture is, it's expression. And you need as little rules as possible to allow that expression to come out very naturally. And so I think the most important cities in the world are places where that happens. And I don't mean the whole city needs to be free. It could be a city which is very controlling. As long as there's a place, a safe place where people feel they can open up.
So yeah, we definitely got those places.
Well, we get those, yeah. Well, I think, and now I think we're, as I said, that there's places like that all over the world. I don't know. I think there's more places around the world now than ever before, because club culture is bigger than ever before. And I think people understand that it's very healthy and needed for people to be able to find somewhere to let themselves go and release themselves. You can't just work. And when you need a let off steam. We need to sweat, and enjoy. And that's some of the best things you can do on a dance floor.
We all love basements.
Yeah. I don't know why. One of them that we all love basement, or like at least dark room. I was just going to my studio today, and my studio's in the basement. And I love walking down the stairs. It's beautiful outside. Finally, we got good weather in Berlin, and I'm meeting the blue and the sun behind, and it gets darker and colder. And then I go into a different frame of mind, and that's something special. I've always, my first studio was in the basement of my parents' house. And then the other studios I've had, which weren't in basements, never had windows. I don't like to see daytime. I don't like to see the passage of time when I'm in the studio. I like the studio and a club also to be a place where you just get lost.
Sure. Yeah. What a sign. Okay, going back to those times, when you were at the studio at your parents' place, then Class 8 started.
Yeah.
It was called like second wave of music. And what shaped you there when you were creating that, and how you could describe the movement and like precursors which actually inspired you?
I think there was a whole bunch of things going on why I got interested or in club culture and music. Now, it was a place where I felt really like I was the weird kid in my little city, and didn't really feel connected to the music or the fashion of my other friends. And in Detroit and going to clubs, I felt people that I liked, but I somehow felt part of. So there was that going on. There was this incredible music happening. But what was really important for me was that there was this real DIY approach. I was meeting DJs and label owners that were making their own music in their own studio. They were creating their own records. They were even, and what we were also doing, going downtown to Detroit to the record pressing plant, picking up the records, taking them to UPS, sending the records to the record shop. And it was like a little industry, but it was tiny, and it was really independent. And it felt in every part of the equation, you could put your own personality on it. Like you wrote your own press releases, and you described the music you were creating. You made the labels or the artwork. We did it all ourselves. My partner at the time, John Apuviva, had a credit card with a $5,000 limit, which was a lot of money then, well, still a lot of money. And that was how we were able to pay for our first record. So we didn't have to ask anyone. We didn't have to ask our parents, or we had a vision or a dream or a story that we wanted to tell. And with every record, we told it. And with every record, we found other friends and other artists that we invited onto the label, Poissé, and started to release other records and just built this family and kind of dream world together. That's what it was, really. And techno was big. There was still think parties in Germany. There was Mayday and things going on in England. But it's not like it is now. It still was, if you wanted to go somewhere, you called, hey, do you know somebody in England doing some clubs? Maybe I could get a gig. Like, it was really, then you got there, it was for 100 people or 50 people. It was a really small network. Like, I know that exists still now, but that exists underneath this whole massive thing that's happening, Tomorrow World or Tomorrowland over here in Time World. So, but then there was nothing about, that was it. You went to one city, you met 20 people or 200 people who are into techno, and that was the whole scene. And then you went to another city. And so it was really a beautiful time of connecting and finding friends that were purely connected by music and by these stories that we're telling each other on our records. Like, because that was also it. Like, there was no, we had fax machines but there was no email. There was no cell phones. So the only way you communicated was really what was on the record. So if you wrote something on the record, or if there was a special picture on the record, or there was the frequencies, that described your personality to the people around the whole world. So when you landed in London or Tokyo, you all felt like you like with the other artists, you felt like you knew each other, but only through the machines you used, through the sounds you made. So it was very pure. It was really like sonic communication.
Nice. That's different. It's a little bit different to what is happening now.
I don't think it was a beautiful moment. Like now we have all these other technology that we can use in social media, AI, and all of them can be used for incredible new ways to communicate. But there was a pureness about that time, because the best form of communication on those times was music and a sonic message. There was nothing really else around it, And we didn't even take photos then. I remember when I started doing some photos in a magazine for Plastic Man, and then some people were like, "Oh, are you doing photos? Are you selling out? Are you getting too commercial?" Like, it was really very pure. You really were like, "Oh," and then it was like, "Okay, well, if I'm going to do a photo, what messages am I sending? Does this photo show the idea of the music of the album?" You really thought that way.
That was you, that background.
Yeah, like all these things. You thought about everything, like you still think about everything, but now, there was just, there was less, so less is more sometimes,
Okay, but you were like breaking point for many musicians, back then and now as well, I guess, especially when we meet someone. So what was the breaking point for you? When did you feel like,
like when things were opening up?
Yeah.
I think it's like, there's a couple. Like I remember we, like little things. I got our first record, +8 #1, States of Mind. I remember a store in Manchester, Eastern Bloc Records, calling and saying, "Hey, we love your record. We want to have 500. We're like, 500? You want 500 copies of a record? We're like, what? Like freaking out. So it was like, I made it. Well, you didn't really make it, but it was like it was a stepping stone. But it was so exciting, and that gave the energy of other people far away liking what you did was part of growing and learning, about what you're doing. And for me, I think, kind of back to the core question, the Plastic Man project that I started in 1993 with the Sheet One album was following when my name and my music went further, because I was doing that record with an incredible record label called Mutant Records with Depeche Mode and Nitzareb. Like a lot of records I owned in my collection came from that label. And so it was a dream to try to work with them. And when they agreed or heard Plastic Man, or I get to do this together, it was really a dream. And they knew how to promote and sell a record, like I gave them the music, and the artwork, but then, they find a way to help to the right journalists and the magazines and then photos. And then you start to build more of a personality and find ways to communicate further. So I think in the 90s, if you ask people who is Richie Hawtin or who is Plastic Man, most people knew Plastic Man before Richie Hawtin. And then over the career, because I don't do many Plastic Man albums, I was doing DJ. Plastic Man became more like the alter ego and kind of, in a way, more underground or lesser known. And then Richie Hawtin became more and more known, especially as club culture became more popular and bigger. No, this is the interesting thing for me, which I don't know if I would be mentally prepared to be a DJ in 2023. Because now when you start, everything happens really quickly. You go from a club, you make one hit record, and then boom, you're on 1 million followers and blah, blah, blah. Like, great. But, I was just like a nerdy kid who loved music. And my career and the records kind of came out as the scene got bigger and developed. So I became more comfortable being more popular as I got more popular. And it went like from 500 people coming to my shows to 800 people to 1,000 people to 1,500 people over 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And so I'm very, very happy that I was able to have a career that grew with the scene and kind of naturally expanded.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, but we also had like you were doing legendary parties back then.
Yeah, of course.
So that was like before Plastic Man.
No, what? Yeah, I mean, like I was doing.
You grow the audience.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like in like 91, 92, 93 in the Detroit area, we were doing a lot of and myself, along with my friends and team, we were doing these crazy warehouse parties called Static and Hard, Heaven and Hell, lots of different things. And those were just black boxes, strobe lights, massive PAs, and extended sets, crazy, hedonistic sweat boxes. And yeah, those were also they created a wave also.
It's there where you were ahead as well. Like your idols will start to come in for you.
Yeah. People were traveling in, and also that's even where the idea of Plastic Man came. Like the sound of Plastic Man, it's techno, it's rhythmic, but it's trippy. It's like all those. That feeling came from those parties, and it's another kind of like. There wasn't so many parties back in that time. There wasn't so many clubs to play. So thinking about that DIY idea, if you wanted to create something, you did it yourself. You went to the studio, you made music, then you made a record. If nobody wanted to put your record out, you made a record label. And then to play those records, you did a party. And once you started putting all those things together, you created a scene, a community, a sound, and in the end, you created a following.
Yes. Okay, and then let's get back to the labels. Then it was +8, and then you created Minus, right? What was
that was from 1990 to 97. They had +8 with John Aquavita. Yeah, and around 96, 97. We were running +8. We had a sub-label called Prod. We had a house label called Definitive. We had a distribution company called IntelliNet. We were helping run about 20 other labels. And we also had a pressing plant. And we were pressing all our own records. So we had this whole organization that we had built from the ground up ourselves. But it had become very quickly, over 7, 8 years, a real big business. And around 97, 98, it really felt like, for me, and also I think for John, it was very difficult to be creative all the time because we had so many other business responsibilities and we had people working for us that we needed to make a change. And at that time, we decided to close +8 and Pro and Definitive, and close the pressing plant, and kind of start
people, right? It was
it wasn't like everything was just closed. The pressing plant, some friends took it over, and John continued. So It's not like everybody was suddenly unemployed. But, at least from my side, it was important to get back time to be more creative in the studio. And that was when I started the new label Minus as an idea of a label just for my own productions. Okay. And of course, you start something like that and you start to work on your own sound, and then you start talking to other artists who like your sound and you like their sound, and then you invite one to make a record, and suddenly you're running another label. So, but those, I guess those early days of Plus 8, like there's always for me this yin and yang and ebb and flow of creative and business. Like, this is what I do. This is my life. So I have to think about what keeps me inspired creatively, but I also have to think about how that works to put food on the table. So, and my whole life is pushing and pulling. And sometimes I feel like Rich the businessman, and sometimes I feel like Rich the artist. And when I'm really lucky, I feel like I'm just down the middle. And because I like both. Like I love the challenge of thinking in numbers or promotion and marketing, and like, okay, how do I take this cool idea and bring it to the people? But if you don't have enough time to make cool ideas, then you also have no time or nothing to think about on the business side. So it's a really, it's a very difficult, fun, challenging, frustrating way to live your life. But it's also like, it also comes back to what I said in the beginning. It's DIY, as in not necessarily Rich does it all himself, but it's being an artist who can stay as much in control of the whole story as possible. So even when you're bringing other great people in to work with you, other artists or staff, employees, you're still the leader, and that leadership takes time and energy. And so you're always still balancing. So when can I be the artist and just close the door and get lost in the studio? And when do I have to come out of the studio and spend time working with everybody in the team to make the ideas come to life?
And I guess it's necessary to find that.
Yeah, it is.
So support many artists, right?
Exactly. Like running a label
Yeah.
is super creative and fun, and you get to like work together with so many great artists. But to run a label is also, when it gets larger, very time consuming. There's business, there's royalties, publishing, there's all the things which you're responsible for. If an artist makes the record for me, then you want to make sure that that artist gets, everything that they deserve at the right time and in the right way. So, yeah, so it's, that's the life that I lead.
Okay. Mine was as well, like, like after like big change, you change, but there was very special album mix down, like coming straight away, like, which contains, like so many legends, which are legends right now, including like Peter, and like,
well, and there's,
how that reflects
like
the first step in the label,
like when you ask the questions, then you realize or I realize again, like how many things are going on at the same time.
Yeah.
Because in 97 and 98, I started Minus. The same time, there was 2 Plastic Man albums coming out, Concealed and Artifacts. And then in the following year, 98, there's Dex Effects 909 coming out, which is the style that I'm DJing. And then there's, at the same time, Final Scratch, the technology that I was helping promote with John Acoviva, which was the first digital vinyl system, which allowed you to play MP3s. So, yeah, there's tech going on, there's music going on, there's creativity, there's business. Like, yeah, you don't. you don't like take your timestamp and show up for work and then leave work. You know, it's you wake up and you do what we need to do and what is inspiring you, and so you sleep in between and you try to, you know, in my opinion, like, you know, have fun, do cool shit, hang and work with cool people.
So even if it's like opening something new, you're still like going back and like taking a step back to move forward as well and work with all the people which were before and now, right?
But we did it. Well, at that and like on that mix and then the minus days, they were really important because it was there was a lot of people on those on the album, and everyone at minus really good friends of mine. And what I think what was really important and special about minus was that there was a real crew, a real gang that we were nearly living and sleeping and shitting together. You know, like we were in New York, we moved here, we were partying, like everybody was making music 24 hours a day. Like it was just a great gang of friends who were really on a mission and exactly on the same path and enjoying it. And so we were just following that road for as long as possible.
I guess it was great times.
Yeah. But it's also like that minus became even bigger or more popular or more influential when we came to Berlin, because there was just such an energy in Berlin in 2004, 2005. There was so many new friendships happening, so much experimentation and partying and music and everything, and just so much energy. It was like an explosion. Like every day, every weekend in the city, people were cutting in and moving and changing studios, building studios. There was warehouse parties and legal parties. Like, you know, there wasn't as many clubs as there is now, but there was so much going on. You know,
I was myself in 2009, Saturday Adventure Club.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like that was also,
Still not that far.
yeah, like what was also really special at that time, there was a lot of crews or labels, and everybody kind of had their sound and gang, but everybody was friends. And sometimes there was like techno football where like Mobile was playing, you know, the Midas gang, and then B Pitch would come over. Like it was, I'm sure there was some competition, but like it was more like everybody was like in it together.
Yeah.
And I think as things or scenes or things get bigger and more popular, there tends to be a point where the friendly competition turns into real competition. And that always changes the dynamics.
Yeah. Nice. Like going back to the roots, I mean, in the sea or those things. I would like to put like, ask you about like, how would you compare also like, because you live a lot in New York as well. Now you're based here. Like, how would you compare those two scenes, like clubs here, clubs there, you know, like how it was back then and how it is right now?
I think like I was in New York. I don't even remember. I was in New York around 2002, 2003. So it's really hard to make a comparison. Like, well, like there was, Manhattan was kind of gay, and Brooklyn was still raw, and a lot of the young creatives were living in Williamsburg, and you know, there was cool warehouse parties, and it felt like there was a real scene. Like I don't know like how long it's been. I was only there like 1 year, so that's why it's really difficult to. What I can say, like at that point, I felt like there was a real scene in New York, but all of us wanted to come to Europe, because there wasn't as much of a scene in America or Canada at that point. And it just felt like there was so much more going on for labels, music, gigs in Europe. And that was one of the big reasons why there was so many people moving to Berlin or other places, UK or Barcelona, just to be closer to what was happening. So yeah, like I think right now North America has an incredible, for me, feeling like there's an incredible new underground scene developing. So every time I travel, I was in Vancouver, I was in New York, and it feels more vibrant than ever before. But 15, 20 years ago, it was really like difficult to find as many people interested in electronic music as it was in Europe.
So that was like the main thing to come here.
Yeah, like Europe has always been so much more forward in the idea of accepting club culture. I'm not saying it, of course it was in America. Club culture has been in Chicago, New York, Detroit, and all these places, but there was more going on here. And it also comes down to that idea of balancing creativity and business and finances. It's like, and it's still why people move to Berlin now. Like, people want more gigs. They need to make more money because nobody wants to get a real job. That's we all want to like be creative and do cool, fun stuff. And so how do you do that? I think it's probably easier than ever before now to be somewhere or anywhere because of all the technology to stream and share your music and things like that. But back in the 90s or early 2000s, if you wanted to make real connections, you needed to go somewhere.
Yeah, starting from cyber selling,
Yeah,
as well, which we really like. I think we can even like compare to what is happening right now as well. What is
yeah.
and going to fuse and how would you like classify this?
Well, Cybersonic was like the third record we did, and that was with a great friend, Daniel Bell, DBX. He was the one who wrote the song in the studio with the main line, and then we all worked on it together. And like at that moment, techno was had this industrial influence, and that we wanted something with a 909 with a thick synth. There's kind of a metallic clank on it, and like we were also kids who were into techno, but we weren't into Nitzeret. We weren't into Front 242. So Cybersonic brings all those influences together. But it was really important for us to have it to be a techno record and not an industrial record. We weren't we wanted it to be tough. We wanted it to be intense, and also with the Fuse records. But we weren't trying to make hard records somehow. And I think that's what's similar to what's happening now, because in the 90s, techno, a certain side of it became harder, faster. And at some point, it just kept going in that direction and kind of burned itself out. And, it kind of feels is similar, like that's happening again right now. It's like you can't play hard enough or fast enough. And I get it. It's about an energy. But I think at some point, when it's only about trying to sustain a certain energy all night long on the dance floor, you lose a really important narrative and feeling. You lose a bit the storytelling and dynamics. You need highs and lows in music and in club nights and experiences to kind of you know,
Feel the journey.
like to feel the journey to like life isn't just one, it's not monotone, life is up and down and it's all over the place. That's what makes it interesting. So I'm always a bit, careful when one sound dominates, techno for too long, or one sound dominates one club night. I like to hear different things. I like to have feel different emotions. I like to dance to different rhythms.
Cool. Okay, you going?
But that was Cybersonic, and then I guess my first real solo experiments as a producer were under the name Fuse, and a lot of those were heavily influenced by the Detroit sound and the Chicago acid sound. So you have a lot of the 909 rhythm. They're quite fast, big claps, but real strong, throbbing, or raw acid lines. That in my mind, they weren't hard. They were more throbbing. They were more intense. I wanted to kind of like make people feel they were like, not being hit by my record, kind of really like pushed around and moved,
Like on the desk or something.
Yeah.
Like, very good party, right?
But it was always like, when I think about music or I talk about music, like I close my eyes and it like I want something that sucks me in. Like something that's gonna make me hallucinate or hypnotize me. I want to get lost in music. That's for me quite often the function of how I DJ or why I make albums is for people to get sucked into this sonic experience and be lost for 50 minutes or 2 hours or 5 hours or something. To take people on a trip, to take people out of their body, out of their mind, out of their normal life, and to kind of just live within the frequencies for some time.
Yeah. And you combine that with technology a lot with like visuals. How do you think that reflects also like how it goes together?
Yeah, it's a good idea. A good question, because there is like, as techno left or started to go away just from the club to the festival or to bigger concerts, then the idea, and especially with early Plastic Man live shows, was how to, can we bring visuals into this? And I think for we're human. We see, we hear, we taste. We have all these senses. So to play with two senses, sight and sound, and bring them together in a beautiful way, can be a stronger form of hypnotism. Can be a stronger way to bring people into this hypnotic tunnel that you're trying to create. So, I love to see what I'm hearing or hear what I'm seeing. I like kind of an abstract, like the true word. I come back to like hypnotism or hypnotics. I like being sucked into a tunnel and be taken somewhere. So that's why quite a lot on the Plastic Man projects for the live shows experiment with audio and visuals, Like there's two ways to think about it. You can be a purist and say, okay, it's only about music, which the music is the foundation of everything we're speaking about. And I love closing my eyes and painting my own picture of what I'm hearing. But I also think it's super cool when you can actually deliver something to the eyes that seems like you're watching what you're hearing, because then you're giving, it's just another way to bring more power or more strength to the story that you're trying to tell.
Definitely not how like we saw each other went to the for neo pop.
Yeah.
Like you can see like how they work with this 3D. Like I think also it's definitely
Yeah.
Hawtin Court.
Yeah, no, no. I think they do. They do. Neil Hunt does a great production, and it's I. At the end, as a clubber, you know, you can decide if you want to dance and close your eyes and lose yourself, or if you want to watch. So, like, everything is possible. Like, the dance floor should just be a place which gives you the freedom to express yourself and have fun and release yourself, and you know, go home feeling better than you did when we first came.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. We definitely would to feel bad.
Well, maybe sometimes there's 1 or 2 days you don't feel, you're like, oh my God, I need to sleep and I need to rest. I'm destroyed. But generally, after that, you should feel like, wow, that was a great night. Or I feel amazing. I made some new friends. Like, there's so many great things that can happen on a dance floor. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we could also like ask about your influences and like, you are a good friend of stand-up, and like how you guys to meet and like how that happened. Do you guys still influence each other?
Yeah, like, well, Sven and I met in 1991 in New York, and Sven was one of the first people who invited us over to play in Germany. Actually, Sven and Dmitry from Truzor. And, you meet people and you know instantly that you're on the same wavelength. And Sven and I were on the same wavelength from the very beginning. In the beginning, he was already pretty crazy and crazier in a way. I was so nerdy. And later on, we found even more of a better balance at a different period of my life. And we played a lot together. We were on Ibiza many, many years together, partying, going crazy, and even recording a Cocoon mix CD together. But at the core, Sven loves what he's doing and just believes in how much great positive energy and power you could make and give to people through music and on a dance floor. And I think that's where we find our kind of shared beliefs and our friendship, And Sven wakes up and he lives this, I know we're not the only people who live this, but it's like, there's some people I've met over the years who kind of take this as a job, and they, and then there's people I meet who just, this is their whole being. And that is its whole being. What? And for Germany, Sven has been always like just a strong leading light in believing in club culture, and leading that. Especially, Germany has always been very open-minded for clubs, and it's been a great place for techno since the 90s. But, not everybody liked it or took it seriously for the whole time. So you need people with vision who are leading and believing in themselves and what they stand for.
Yeah, really amazing part. I mean, definitely. So, besides spelling, you meet so many musicians, and what could you say about workflow of working in the studio, or like when doing your set? What do you learn the most from the people which you meet during your
well. I think that like the most, what I've learned is to listening and working with people, collaborating, DJing with people is always super inspiring, because everybody does things differently. Everybody hears things differently. If somebody likes the 909 drum machine, someone like an 808 or 707. So it's just beautiful and inspiring to see how a human stands in front of some technology and something completely different happens if another human steps in front of the same technology. Like, somebody comes to my studio with all my equipment and they make something, you're like, wow, how did you do that? So that's always, I think, inspiring and like challenging. Like it's yeah, I'm not really answering the question right, but yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is like to be, you know, be as open minded as possible when you're when you're watching or listening to how other people perform or play. Yeah. You know, over the years, like sometimes I hang out with Neil Schramm, who's like more of a pianist and classically trained and has all this beautiful vintage equipment. And you know, like he does things in a completely different way than I would approach it. I couldn't do it the way he does, but of course, what he makes is absolutely outstanding, beautiful. So it's just, you know, and especially with music and tech, there's no right or wrong way to do any of this, or even DJing. You just have to. It's why I like Sen, why I like Mills, you know, why I like Carson Nicolai. People who really have, they're strong in their beliefs in the way that they are going to make music or perform or distribute music, and they're on their own path. That's the kind of people I want to hang out with. I actually want to hang out with people who are doing their own thing completely differently than me, and learn from that, be inspired by that, challenged by that. Like, why would you do it that way? I wouldn't do it. That's the best thing to say, you know, because like learning and thinking and listening, I think that's amazing.
Look for the trends going like opposite way.
That's it. Like back to your son question, like
Yeah.
son and I had a, you know, like we had so many times where we would see things exactly the same way, and so many times where we would see completely the opposite way, and then we'd be like, "Oh no, you're wrong. You know, no." But I think that's also a healthy, great friendship, you know.
Like, so you said like about the workflow that everyone is doing like something differently, and then you invented like play differently. That's how
yeah.
you got inspired, and like how that come.
Well,
With like-
a little bit like play differently and the Model 1 mixer come from the very an alternative for like an alternative device for people to use when they perform. Like when you look at the studio, there's so many different synthesizers and drum machine and plugins. Like nobody knows all the things that are out there. But when it comes to DJing, especially the last 10 years, it became more and more about everyone just walking up to the Pioneer mixer and CDJs and putting their USB 6 in and performing. And on one level, everybody has different music, so there, of course, there's people aren't all playing the same. But I felt, and I still feel, when everybody is, or most people are playing on exactly the same equipment, perhaps there isn't enough differences or possibilities to keep the creativity in DJing alive. You know, like there needs to be alternatives for people who may want to, this is where we say play differently, like to just have an alternative to a different way of playing. Like every fader, every knob has a different kind of tension, you know? So the equipment always has a say in how you perform or how you play. So really getting involved in designing a DJ mixer was to put something out there that was just an opportunity for people to try something and have then, I'm trying not to say like play differently or perform differently, like just, like, I don't think there's like a one all-in cookie cutter approach to being creative. People, we're all different. So it's good to have alternatives. And that's the very pure idea of designing a DJ mixer, just to have something out there that's different. Okay. Sorry, it didn't really, I couldn't really explain that very well, but and that's that.
Yeah, okay. We'd like to jump also, as we are fashion art music magazine, so we created together an editorial which gonna be in print, and we used looks from Prada. You did soundtracks for the shows. You collaborated with Prada for many years. What's your story? How that happened?
Yeah, like I was, when we were talking earlier about becoming, you know, when I started with Plastic Band, the project, there was moments where you had to start taking a step forward publicly, doing photo shoots and interviews. And, you know, it was in the mid-90s when I was trying to find an image and clothes that I felt comfortable in and that somehow projected this idea of Plastic Man and that's had a minimalistic sound that I was working on. That's when I first started to kind of delve into fashion. And I was really interested in designers like Jill Sanders, Helmut Lang, and Prada. And at that moment, actually, Jill Sanders was actually designed by Raf Simons. And so those are some of my early experiments into like going from a dirty kid with just a t-shirt into something maybe a little bit more refined. Fast forward 20 years later, Raf Simons had gone on to then become a designer for Prada, along with Miss Prada. And they approached me to create music for them, for their shows during the pandemic. So one, I love the brand of Prada. Two, I love the idea of the brand because it's an independent brand. It's not owned by LVMH or, it's still a family business. And in a way, most important, aesthetically, Prada is absolutely beautiful. It's about minimalism. It's about details. It's about silhouettes. And I've always felt that look somehow connects to the sound and the aesthetics that I've tried to create in my Plastic Man album. I wasn't trying to make Plastic Man albums for Prada. I was just like, what I was trying to do sonically, I think it's always had a similar type of feeling. So when Prada came and asked to collaborate, for me, it just made sense. It wasn't like, okay, now I have to think in a different way, or is this commercial or not? It was just like, yeah, I know Raf, I've met him, really like great guy, super creative. I knew he loved the music I was doing. I was wearing the clothes. Like you couldn't ask for a better situation, like it. And this is like when you're in this kind of industry, when something comes and it just feels right, you have to go. So that's why, like when we were talking about doing an editorial and having clothes, like, sure, we can put all different types of designers and look kind of cool, but at this point in my life, I feel respectful of my relationship, my creative relationship with Prada. And I feel that it is representative of me, of how I feel, of who I am, and of the music style that I'm producing. So that's why I was really, I said, I want to wear Prada. And then you guys got some, vintage Prada. So I think, what's important as an artist, as you grow more popular or as you grow older, is just to try to remember who you are, where you're going, what your mission is, and work with people or ideas or brands that connect to those same principles. Like it's very, very hard to do because there's always so many different ideas and people knocking on your door and calling. But if you can do that most of the time, then you're really defining a whole aesthetic idea. And then that becomes part of the whole narrative of what you're doing. Like I've kind of I've felt that way for a long time, because it's not, you speak to somebody and, okay, maybe Richie Hawtin is Plastic Man, or Richie Hawtin is Dex Effects 909, or Richie Hawtin is a guy who played 2 weeks ago at Neopop or something. But actually, Richie Hawtin is so many different things now after all these albums, all this music. So somehow I'm trying to always keep it so that it makes sense to me and makes sense to the greater world out there.
It's so many information about you.
Yeah, like so. And sometimes
You did so many projects.
sometimes you go this way or that way, or everybody, you make a mistake or you say the wrong thing, whatever. Like, we're all human. So, but when you put all that together, you hope that it paints an interesting picture.
Yeah. I guess we still need to learn also to say no. You know?
Yeah. And I'm learning. I'm learning.
I guess.
This year, I'm learning to say no. I just said no to 3 things.
But you would always say yes for every project.
No. I used to say yes to nearly everything and say yes to every gig. Like I used to do over, I don't know, at least 200 shows a year. I would do 12 gigs in a row every day. Like, I'd do everything. Like, I like a challenge, and I always said yes. But now at my position now, and my position, meaning my position in life, like, I have a family. There's other things that I want to do. And actually right now, the other thing that's super important besides family is actually be in the studio more. And to be in the studio and be concentrated and to go deep into an idea takes time. Sure, you can have an accident and make a great record in a couple hours. But if you want to make and go deep into yourself, at least for me, you really need some concentration. And I think the world we live in, with so much social media and things taking our attention and also being on tour all the time, makes it really difficult for artists, especially DJs and electronic musicians, to really challenge themselves and go somewhere new and exciting. And that's lesson where I'm at right now. That's where I want to go. So the only way to try and go in that direction is to say no on many different areas.
So, yeah, you just said like about touring, about being, distracted all the time. So what works the best for your mind, which when you're like on the tour constantly, you're meeting a lot of people.
Like
Everyone wants something.
Yeah, like I was always really strong and resilient being on tour, and I always had a very strong discipline of waking up, getting to the next gig, making my meetings, even when I was partying and going crazy. Like, I was very disciplined. So you have to find a good way to have that mindset and to be healthy in between being unhealthy. So sports, swimming. But nearly every year for 20 years, I would take January, February, and March off. Okay. No club, no party, no gigs. Studio, 1 month, completely off the grid vacation, and to rejuvenate my internal clock, my energy, my inspiration, my humanity, my humility, everything, and that really helps. So I think it's really being on the tour, constant. Like, you've got to take a break. You've got to like, at moments walk away from what you love to then come back to it.
Yeah. But have you ever thought, like, you're very related with technology and stuff, have you ever thought about like inventing some, I don't know, program or equipment for DJs and to help them like scheduling all of this, or like, to make it easier with all these flights, cancellations? I don't know.
No, actually at one point in 2000 something, we were going to start a website called mybookingagent.com. And that was going to be helping everyone kind of connect but so it's a little bit like that, but so yes, but not really. Like the technological part of my interest has always been in developing or working with technology that helps kind of the creative part, whether it's a Model 1 mixer or whether it's the Final Scratch. I was also working with this company Line that made some touch controllers. So yeah, and for me, like I know a lot of other DJs have problems with all the flights and cancellations and this and that, but I never really found that much of a problem with that. If you're focused, if you have discipline, and you're mostly organized, none of this is rocket science. You know, turn the alarm off, wake up, make the flight, get to the next show, then sleep if you have time, and then do the next great shows, and repeat.
Okay, and going back to lifestyle, you're also like very connected with Japanese culture, either your own brand and bar here in Berlin.
Yeah. We have Sake 36. So yeah, I went to Japan in 1994 for the first time, and I don't know. I think that what is a beautiful thing about like the culture of Japan has this really beautiful, special balance between the high-tech future and the past customs and tradition. And that always fascinated me how all those things went together. And I'm not saying this very well either, but I like it. The moment I landed in Tokyo the first time, I felt at home there. I felt that there's something about the aesthetics, how things look, how people act. There's a certain code, and some of the codes can be a bit crazy, but yeah, it's really, it felt like in those early days, maybe taking a step into the future. It was really different and alien to Europe or Canada. And so, of course, I think we're all attracted to things which are different. And that really just held on to me all these years. And so Japan was always a place I wanted to go to. Anytime people offered me a gig, I would say yes to go to Japan, and I would play the smallest places. And during those trips, I met lots of great, incredible Japanese friends. I got introduced to Japanese sake. I loved the taste of sake. I loved the way it made me feel. I loved drinking and hearing techno music. And no, it's one of those things which grabbed me, and I had to follow where it took him. I don't know if you get to pick your passions. Maybe they're built into us when we're born, and then you realize what your passions are. And sometimes something attached you, and it's on your new passion, and you either accept it or you don't. And so I accepted sake as a passion, and have over the years studied as a sake sommelier, become connected to the industry and brewers. And in the end, opened with my partner Max a sake bar here, just to help spread the knowledge and the taste and the culture of sake. Like, to me, like, and I said it earlier, like, we're human. We take this whole thing, reality, in by our senses, and we all sense things differently. You hear a record differently than I do. You taste the sake differently than I do. But bringing experiences, human experiences to us that we take through our senses is a beautiful experience. So I don't see much of a difference between playing a great record to somebody or putting a great bottle of sake. It's like, what is the right record to play right now? You know, what is the right sake? It's about timing. It's about knowledge. It's about confidence in presenting or introducing somebody to something new. That's exciting. Like if I can do anything in life, traveling the world, having experiences, and then taking those experiences and sharing them to other people and try to do it in a way that they have their own beautiful experience and being part of that. That's, I think, probably what life is all about.
Okay, and so we've been in the past, we've been in the present. Now let's go to the future. So what's the future looks like for Richie Hawtin?
This is the question everybody asks. You know, what's the future look like?
We know you're also working on your tour and bringing lots of emerging artists.
There's a lot.
Besides
There's
that, yeah.
I have a new platform which is not really a label or more of a group of like-minded friends and artists which is called From Our Minds. That's the beginning of bringing people together at events around the world. It's definitely focused more on a strong, repetitive, minimalistic sound. It's not hard. It's not slow. It's something, trying to grab people into the pureness of rhythm and sound is kind of the mission From Our Minds, and developing and supporting young artists and the next generation. You have that going on. I'm in the studio working on Plastic Man ideas and material. There's an interactive game that I've been working on, which connects game technology and interactive environments with my DJ shows. I can't to try
That's a
to.
big influence from Japan.
Is it really?
It's like a game cook.
Yeah, like I don't. I think that project, which I don't know how you're going to describe it, but is a project to try and reach and connect to people who may not want to go to clubs or can go to clubs, but love electronic music. I think there's people out there who are really happy on their computer, but want to experience something really special, like you do on the dance floor. So myself, I have been working with my team to try and create a gaming experience which connects to the way I play and form. So I'm not going to explain it any further. It's another project that I'm working on. But I think in my brain right now is when I look out at the current environment of DJs and music and techno, on one level, I find it really inspiring because there's so many young people coming in and performing for the first time or experiencing techno for the first time. And that's amazing. But because I have a 30-year perspective, sometimes I question how new and fresh and exciting everything is, because quite a lot of the themes are based on things that have already happened. So how do we continue to make our scene or techno forward-thinking and futuristic if we're now starting to repeat the past? So that's on my mind. And I find also at the same time, I find how do I say this? Of course, I come from DJing. I love DJing. I think DJing can be elevated to a really high artistic performance. But I don't necessarily think that a lot of DJs out there right now are really pushing the envelope as much as it could be. You know, playing one record after another, beat matching, all these things, these are things we've been doing for a long time. And they work, they entertain people. But can we do more that entertain? Can we take people further? And I don't know, I'm not saying I have the answer to that, but is it a combination of looking at performance in a different way? Is it the idea of creating more of a show and more synchronicity between lights and visuals? Like VR, it could be any of these things, but I tend to feel right now most of the DJs who are on the circuit are going around one plane to another with a USB stick, playing mostly the same songs and just kind of going in a circle. And I think we all need to push a little bit more the creativity and see how we can continue to make our culture not only entertaining, but also innovative. I think there's lots of interesting new genres and mashups happening. So, I don't know if I'm sure there will be a new genre. I don't know if there needs to necessarily be a new genre. I think there's still a lot of life in techno and in house music. But because it's so popular now, like it's mainstream. Techno and house is mainstream. So when it becomes mainstream, it's pretty easy just to go on autopilot and give the people what they want. And it feels like a lot of people are giving the people what they want.
Okay.
And if it only becomes about that, then the mainstream will move on. And then what's left?
Something new will come.
Something new for the mainstream, or people lose interest in techno and house. Maybe it goes smaller again. Who knows? But I think when everybody can be a DJ and everybody can get up behind two CDJs and play a couple of hits that they know are going to work for the crowd, like, what is it to aspire to? Like, that doesn't sound exciting to me. Like, that doesn't sound challenging to me. So I think you have to be very careful of just letting our whole culture become too watered down, too demystified. It's,
Yeah. If you would have like any superpower, what it would be?
time travel.
Time travel. Okay. We got a bit more abstract stuff. Okay, and then the 3 wishes to the gene.
3 wishes to the genie.
Gene, yeah.
More time, more time, more time.
But time. Time is the most important.
I think so, because time frames everything for us, and it's the thing we really can't control. So, yeah, maybe that's really uninspired to say, but yeah. So I'm gonna leave it like that.
Okay. And the last experiment, actually, as you are like connected with technology for so long, we ask AI to create a question for you.
Okay.
As well. So let me ask you something. Many electronic music producers are now incorporating AI and machine learning into their music production. Have you explored or experimented with AI-based tools and algorithms in your music making? And if so, how do you see it shaping the future of electronic music?
Well, I find it very interesting that AI is interested in itself. Yeah. So it definitely shows that it has some kind of ego, that probably. Yeah, I like, for sure. I'm interested in everything technological, and I've been experimenting along with a friend, uh, with some AI machine learning on the whole back catalog of Plastic Man, and actually all of analyzing a lot of my old DJ sets to create new sounds and samples. There's some interesting things that come up in that response with AI, but I find at this point it needs a lot of artistic and human curation to find the good stuff. And I think that's what interests me in the collaboration with AI. The as a partner in the studio to help create or come up with creative components, or sounds or samples. And I'm not so excited at this point by these AI-driven songs where it's like, it's listen to all the Plastic Man or Drake and then it spit something out. I think that's something I don't think the world needs at this point 1,000 AI versions of Plastic Man. I think the world would be a better place and the Plastic Man fans would be happier if there was 5 new real Plastic Man songs rather than 10,000 AI versions. Because I still believe at this point, it's always about the interaction of human and machine. And that's the balance in the equation I've been working with my whole creative career. Do I use a 909 or do I use an 808? Do I do edits? Do I do a remix? Like, what is enough tech and what's enough rich or what's enough plastic that? So I look at AI in the same way. What is enough AI? And I think AI is still something to be used more in the background or in the process, but not really in the full creation or arrangement.